Admiral Vale's first reaction was disbelief, but Zara's evidence was irrefutable. The Zorkal weren't just attacking randomly. They were targeting Earth's colonies with deadly precision. The human race was under assault, and a galactic council was behind it. But instead of cowering in fear, Admiral Vale and his fleet made a bold decision. They would not just defend humanity. They would strike back. They would expose the Galactic Council's treachery, and they would make sure the galaxy knew that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. The humans didn't need to be the biggest or the most powerful. They just needed to be smart, strategic, and relentless. Vale knew that the Council believed they had the upper hand. They thought humanity was weak. But the Admiral knew better. The Council had made one fatal mistake. They had underestimated human resolve. As the first wave of Zorkal attacks rained down on Earth's outer colonies, Admiral Vale's fleet moved into position, ready to strike. With cloaked ships and advanced tactics, the vanguard would deliver a blow the Council would never see coming. As the humans prepared for their counterattack, the galaxy watched, oblivious to what was about to unfold. The Galactic Council had made their move, but they had no idea that humanity's own fleet was already in position, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The days after the initial attacks were a blur of chaos, fear, and uncertainty. The outer colonies were devastated, their cities reduced to ash, and their once thriving populations either dead or scattered. News of the Galactic Council's betrayal spread like wildfire through the human colonies. It was a gut-wrenching truth no one was ready to face. For centuries, humanity had trusted the Council, believing they were part of a larger galactic community, a community that had helped shape humanity's growth. But now, that trust had been shattered. The Council had chosen to turn their backs on Earth, aligning themselves with the Zorkal, an empire known for its brutal, merciless ways. Yet, for all the destruction and the fear, one thing remained clear: humanity wasn't going down without a fight. Admiral Marcus Vale sat in his command room, staring at the holographic map of human space. The map was littered with red dots, marking the locations of the destroyed colonies. The Zorkal had been efficient in their attack, and the damage was done. But what the Council and the Zorkal didn't know was that this was only the beginning. The humans weren't just survivors. They were strategists, innovators, and fighters. Vale wasn't just thinking about revenge. He was thinking about how to win the war. It wasn't going to be easy. The Zorkal were a powerful force, their technology advanced, and their military ruthless. But humanity had something they didn't: unity. After the attack, all the scattered colonies, once divided by distance and differing interests, now had one singular focus: survival. And together, they would take the fight to the enemy. In the heart of Earth's military command, teams of scientists, engineers, and soldiers worked around the clock to prepare the fleet. The vanguard was humanity's secret weapon, but it wasn't enough on its own. The fleet needed to be expanded. Its firepower increased. The humans needed to outsmart the Zorkal, not just overpower them. Technology that had been in development for years was suddenly pushed to its limits. Cloaking devices, advanced drones, and weapons systems. Everything that had been a theoretical concept was now becoming a reality. Lieutenant Cassie Hawk, a brilliant engineer and tactical officer, was one of the key players in this operation. Cassie had worked for years on the project that was now humanity's hope. She had been responsible for the development of the cloaking technology that would allow their ships to remain hidden from the enemy. Now, it was her job to make sure it worked flawlessly. The Zorkal might have superior firepower, but they wouldn't be able to touch the humans if they couldn't see them coming. The cold silence of space was shattered by the blinding light of a sudden explosion. On the edge of human space, a distant colony went dark, its defenses overwhelmed by a ruthless alien force. As the flames of battle flickered out, no one in the galaxy knew what had just happened. Except for Earth's defenders. The Galactic Council, the governing body of the most powerful alien species, had been plotting in the shadows, and their betrayal was about to ignite a war no one could have predicted. For years, humanity had been growing, building, and expanding its reach across the stars. Earth's colonies thrived. Humanity's ships became faster, their weapons stronger, and their technology advanced. But the Galactic Council saw this growth as a threat. They feared that if humanity's technological advancements continued at this pace, Earth would soon become a dominant force in the galaxy, a force they couldn't control. In their paranoia, the Council secretly forged a dangerous alliance with the Zorkal, a ruthless alien empire known for their devastating firepower and merciless tactics. The Zorkal's empire spanned entire star systems, and they had one mission: to wipe out anything standing in their way. The Council promised them power, resources, and influence in exchange for eliminating the growing human threat. The plan was simple: annihilate humanity's outer colonies and make it look like a series of random, unrelated attacks. To the rest of the galaxy, it would appear as though humanity was falling apart under the weight of an internal rebellion. The Council believed this would put an end to the humans' growing ambitions, and they could maintain their reign of power. But humanity wasn't going to go down without a fight. The Zorkal attacked without warning, their fleets descending upon humanity's most distant colonies. The first wave of attacks left entire planets burning, their once bustling cities reduced to rubble. For the humans caught in the crossfire, it felt like a nightmare, a brutal betrayal from the very ones they had trusted for so long. Earth's leaders were in disbelief. How could the Galactic Council do this? What had they done to deserve such betrayal? As humanity reeled from the initial blows, there was one thing the Council didn't account for: Earth's unyielding will to survive. The humans were fighters. The attacks on their colonies only served to fuel their anger and determination. On Earth, leaders scrambled to organize a response, but most of the galaxy saw humanity's struggle as just another conflict, nothing more than a small, insignificant race trying to survive. The Galactic Council was confident that the humans would crumble under the pressure, that their technology and resources couldn't possibly match the might of the Zorkal Empire. But the Council was wrong. Deep within the heart of Earth's military command, Admiral Marcus Vale, a man of steel and fire, was putting together a plan of his own. A brilliant strategist with a reputation for thinking outside the box, Admiral Vale was no stranger to the horrors of war. He had witnessed humanity's growth firsthand and knew they had something no alien race could ever truly understand: resilience, heart, and a determination to protect their home at any cost. But more than that, he knew Earth had been preparing for something like this for years, quietly building a fleet hidden in the farthest reaches of human space. The Vanguard, as it was called, was humanity's secret weapon. A fleet unlike any other. Built in secrecy, its ships were cloaked, invisible to the enemy, and equipped with some of the most advanced technology the galaxy had ever seen. These weren't just military vessels. They were the embodiment of human ingenuity. No one, not even the Galactic Council, knew the full extent of Earth's power. The Vanguard wasn't just a fleet, it was a message that no matter how far the Council or the Zorkal went, humanity would never back down. Admiral Vale received a warning from an unexpected source: Zara, an exiled alien from the Tselthun species, who had once been a member of the Galactic Council. She had escaped from the Zorkal after narrowly surviving an assassination attempt. Zara had information that would change the course of the war, information about the Council's betrayal and the deal they had struck with the Zorkal. In return for their support, the Council had promised the Zorkal a galaxy free from humanity's reach. The Council believed the Zorkal would be easy to control. They thought the alliance would be their key to maintaining their power, but they had underestimated one thing: humanity's ability to adapt and fight back. Cassie worked tirelessly in the labs, surrounded by a team of equally dedicated soldiers and engineers. Each day was a race against time. The enemy was closing in, and there was no room for error. As she worked, her mind was focused not only on the technology, but on the countless lives that depended on her success. Every test, Every adjustment to the cloaking systems was another step closer to making sure humanity had a fighting chance. Meanwhile, Admiral Vale was in constant communication with the leaders of Earth's various colonies. Despite the chaos, the human race had remained remarkably cohesive. There were differences, of course. Some colonies were focused on defense, others on rebuilding. But the shared goal of survival kept everyone united. The Admiral had been in contact with Zara, the exiled Excelfun, who had provided crucial intelligence on the Zorkal strategies and weaknesses. It was thanks to Zara that they knew the Zorkal fleet was not as invincible as they appeared. There were chinks in their armor, gaps in their tactics, and most importantly, a belief that the Zorkal had underestimated the humans. As the days passed, Earth's leaders and military strategists were starting to form a plan. The vanguard would take the first strike, but it would be a carefully calculated one. They would hit the Zorkal where it would hurt the most: supply lines, communication hubs, and their most vulnerable planets. The objective wasn't to destroy the Zorkal Empire in one blow. It was to cripple their ability to sustain their war machine, to show them that humanity wasn't as weak as they had thought. Admiral Vale was prepared to do whatever it took. He knew the cost of war. He had seen too many battles, too many lives lost. But this wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about making sure that humanity's future wasn't written by the whims of an oppressive galactic council or a bloodthirsty alien empire. This was their fight, their moment to prove that they could stand toe-to-toe with the most powerful beings in the universe. On the ground, the preparation was just as intense. Soldiers trained relentlessly, mastering the latest weapons and combat techniques. It wasn't just about the technology. It was about the heart and soul of humanity. There was a fire burning in each of them, a drive that no alien race could ever understand. The Zorkal might have superior firepower, but they didn't have the determination that humanity had. As the final days of preparation began, the tension was palpable. The air was thick with anticipation, and every soldier, engineer, and leader knew that the time to strike was fast approaching. They had built something extraordinary, something the galaxy had never seen before, a force of will that no alien could match. The vanguard was ready. The fleet was in place. Humanity had its plan. All that was left was the execution. The question now wasn't if they could win. It was how soon they could make the Zorkal and the Galactic Council realize just how badly they had underestimated humanity. And as the clock ticked down, every human across the galaxy, from the highest-ranking officers to the civilians left behind in the wake of the attacks, knew one thing: the day of reckoning was coming. The time to pay back the betrayal had arrived. The fate of the galaxy was about to change forever. The silence before the storm felt heavier than ever. The Vanguard fleet, a force of ships and soldiers, stood poised at the edge of the galaxy, waiting for the signal. In the distance, the stars shone cold and distant, but within the depths of the human hearts, there was only one thought: revenge. They had been betrayed by the Galactic Council, abandoned by their supposed allies, and left to fend for themselves against the might of the Zorkal Empire. But now, the tables were about to turn. Humanity was no longer the prey. They were the predators. Admiral Marcus Vale stood on the bridge of the flagship, the Resolute. The crew moved with a tense efficiency, every person in their place, every system activated and ready. The Zorkal fleet had no idea that they were about to be caught in a deadly trap. Their systems had been jammed, their communications scrambled by humanity's advanced cloaking technology, and their pride was about to become their downfall. "Admiral, everything is ready," Commander Leela Grant said, her voice steady but with an undercurrent of anticipation. She was the one who had helped develop the cloaking systems, and she had seen the damage the Zorkal had done to Earth's colonies. Her hands were steady, but her mind was focused on the greater purpose: wiping out the threat once and for all. Vale nodded, his eyes never leaving the forward display screen. His fleet was more than just a group of ships. It was a symbol of humanity's defiance. Their first strike wasn't just about taking down enemy ships. It was about showing the galaxy that humanity was not weak, that they would not go down without a fight. It was their declaration of war, and the Zorkul would pay the price. All ships, prepare for the first strike. Vale's voice was calm, but there was an unmistakable resolve behind it. The crew responded in unison, moving like a well-oiled machine. The final calculations were made, and the fleet, now hidden behind the advanced cloaking shields, began to move toward the Zorkul's heart. Outside, the stars seemed to stretch and blur as the Vanguard fleet glided silently across the void. The cloaking technology worked flawlessly, keeping them hidden from the enemy sensors. The Zorkul, confident in their strength, patrolled the space unaware of the impending danger. Their ships, sleek and menacing, drifted slowly in formation, thinking themselves safe. But the humans had learned from their past mistakes. They knew how to hit where it hurt the most. The plan was simple but deadly. Strike swiftly and strike hard. They wouldn't give the Zorkul a chance to retaliate. The first target was one of the largest Zorkul warships, a massive dreadnought named Hegemony's Wrath. It was the pride of their fleet, and destroying it would send a message to the rest of the Empire. As the fleet closed in on their target, Cassie Hawk, the engineer responsible for the cloaking systems, was monitoring the ship's internal systems. She could feel the pressure building, every second ticking down like a countdown to an explosive climax. The first strike had to be flawless. There could be no room for error. With a quick glance at her console, Cassie gave a final check. Cloaking shields at 100%, Admiral. We're undetected. Vale nodded. Initiate the strike. With that, all hell broke loose. In an instant, the cloaking devices were deactivated, and the Vanguard fleet emerged from the shadows. The Zorkul warships never saw it coming. Before they could even react, a barrage of plasma fire erupted from the human ships, striking Hegemony's Wrath with devastating force. The first hit sent shockwaves through the Zorkul ship, tearing through its outer defenses. Explosions rocked the hull, and the once proud dreadnought was left reeling. The humans didn't stop. The Vanguard fleet unleashed hell, their weapons delivering a constant stream of destruction. Within seconds, Hegemony's Wrath was reduced to a twisted, burning wreck. The Zorkul flagship was no more. The shockwave from the destruction spread across the battlefield, catching the enemy off guard. The Zorkul fleet scrambled, but it was too late. The human ships, their weapons now fully unleashed, tore through the enemy ranks. The humans had fought for so long, struggled so hard, that every shot felt like a promise, an oath to protect the future of humanity. The Zorkul ships, powerful as they were, crumbled under the onslaught. The humans had not only the advantage of technology, but also the fierce determination that came from years of suffering and betrayal. On the bridge of the Resolute, Vale watched as the destruction unfolded. His face remained cold, focused. This wasn't just a victory, it was an execution. The Zorkul had made a grave mistake when they had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. Admiral, the enemy's response is weak, Commander Grant reported. Their ships are scrambling, but their command structure is in disarray. They're not prepared for this kind of assault. Vale allowed himself a small smile. It wasn't the time for celebration, but there was a sense of satisfaction. The humans had taken the first step toward reclaiming their galaxy, but the war was far from over. The Zorkul would regroup, and the Council would respond, but the humans had made their presence known. There was no going back now. As the first strike came to an end, the Vanguard fleet moved to secure the battlefield. Zorkul ships continued to retreat, their morale shattered. The humans had done what they had set out to do, destroy the heart of the enemy's power. They had sent a message. Humanity was back, and they weren't going to go down quietly. In the aftermath, the crew of the Resolute stood in stunned silence, taking in what they had just achieved. But it wasn't the time for celebration. The war had only just begun, and the Zorkul Empire would not go down without a fight. But as long as the Vanguard fleet still flew, as long as humanity's resolve remained strong, there was hope. And in that hope, the humans found their strength. The first strike had been a success, but the battle for the future of the galaxy had only just begun. The news spread across the galaxy faster than anyone could have imagined. The first strike had been successful, devastatingly so, and the Zorkal Empire was reeling. But it wasn't just the enemy forces that were in turmoil. Back on the Galactic Council's homeworld, panic began to set in. The Council had been the ones who turned their backs on humanity, seeing Earth as weak and insignificant. They had abandoned the humans during their darkest hour, thinking they could never mount a meaningful resistance. Now they were witnessing something they couldn't control. The humans, betrayed and alone, had returned with a vengeance, and they had the power to destroy anyone who stood in their way. At the heart of the Council's headquarters, the leaders of the galaxy's most powerful species convened in an emergency session. The holographic projection of the Vanguard fleet's destruction of Hegemony's wrath hovered in front of them, a grim reminder of the human resolve. A cold, uneasy silence filled the room as the representatives of dozens of species exchanged worried glances. "I told you we should have dealt with them years ago," General Thrax of the Lycor said, his deep voice filled with bitterness. His reptilian eyes narrowed, his scales shimmering in the dim light. The Lycor had always been one of the most vocal supporters of the decision to cast humanity aside. They had seen the humans as primitive, unworthy of the advanced technologies the Council provided. But now, they were paying the price for that arrogance. Enough. Chancellor Velina, the head of the Council, snapped. She was an imposing figure, tall and regal, her skin a pale blue with streaks of silver running through it. Her eyes flashed with anger and panic, but she maintained an air of authority. "We did what was necessary. We had no choice but to leave them behind. The Zorkal were too powerful, and the human colonies were a liability. We didn't anticipate they would come back like this. But now they have, and they're more dangerous than we imagined." An older counselor from the Inera species muttered, his frail voice barely audible. "They have technology we can't match. We've underestimated them for far too long." Velina's lips tightened as she stared at the projection of the human fleet. Her mind raced. What had they done? They had believed that abandoning humanity would be easy, that it would be a simple matter of leaving them to fight their own battles. They had no idea that the humans had been quietly preparing for this moment, waiting for the day when they would have the strength to strike back. And now that day had arrived. "We cannot afford to ignore this," Velina said firmly, her voice regaining its composure. "We've underestimated humanity's ability to evolve and adapt. If the humans manage to rally other systems to their cause, they could become a significant threat to the entire galaxy." General Thrax snarled, his tail lashing behind him. "We need to destroy them before they gain any more momentum. Their fleet may have taken down Hegemony's wrath, but we still have the strength to crush them. Our forces are unmatched, and we can crush their rebellion before it spreads any further." But the Vanguard fleet is not the only threat, the Inera counselor warned. "They've allied themselves with the Syndicate, and I suspect they have other forces on their side. The humans are not fighting alone." Velina's eyes flickered with concern. She had known that the Syndicate, an outlaw group of smugglers, mercenaries, and criminals, had been aiding the humans with supplies and intelligence. But this was different. The humans had become a force to be reckoned with, and if they had the backing of such a wide variety of factions, they could easily tip the balance of power. "Then we must prepare for war," Velina declared, her voice hardening. "We cannot allow humanity to get any stronger. We will bring every resource at our disposal to bear. The Zorkal have failed, but we will not." The council members exchanged uneasy glances. The gravity of the situation was starting to sink in. The humans weren't just a small, insignificant force anymore. They were a threat, one that could destabilize everything they had worked so hard to build. The Galactic Council, once the pinnacle of power in the galaxy, was now facing a rebellion from the very species they had cast aside. "We can't just send more ships," Thrax added, his anger rising. The Zorkul didn't stand a chance against their new weapons. They have something we don't understand, and that's what makes them dangerous. Velina's expression darkened as she looked at the projections. It was true. The humans had developed cloaking technology far beyond anything the Council had ever seen, and their weapons were more advanced than they should have been. How had humanity managed to acquire such technology in secret? And what else did they have up their sleeves? We'll need to hit them hard, fast, she decided, before their fleet grows any larger. We must take them down at the source, where they're getting their technology. If we can destroy the Vanguard fleet before they become too powerful, we can neutralize their rebellion before it spreads. We also need to neutralize their leadership, Thrax suggested, his tone venomous. Take out their key commanders. If we can break their morale, the humans will scatter, and their rebellion will fall apart. Velina nodded, a dark plan forming in her mind. It would be risky, but it was their only option. The humans had become a wild card, and they had to act quickly before they became a real threat. The Council's plan was already set in motion, but they were running out of time. Prepare our fleets, Velina ordered. We'll strike before they can regroup. The humans will soon learn that betraying the Galactic Council was their final mistake. The Council members dispersed, each with their own orders to execute. Velina stood alone, staring at the projection of the burning wreckage of Hegemony's wrath. The humans had sent a message, one that she couldn't ignore. And now it was her turn to respond. The final confrontation had arrived. The tension in the galaxy was thick, almost suffocating. After weeks of cat-and-mouse games, strategic strikes, and the complete reorganization of their fleets, the Galactic Council's last hope rested on the shoulders of their remaining forces. They had mobilized everything. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. This was no longer a simple military operation. It was an all-out war for survival. And the humans, once cast aside, were ready to show just how far they'd come. In the darkness of space, the Vanguard fleet emerged from the shadows of a distant nebula. The fleet that had once seemed small, unworthy of notice, was now a massive force, a nightmare for anyone foolish enough to stand in its way. The humans, though few in number compared to the combined might of the Galactic Council's forces, were not fighting alone. Their alliance with the Syndicate, along with support from scattered resistance movements, had transformed them into something far more dangerous. At the heart of the Council's defensive formation was the Halcyon, the flagship of the Galactic Council's might. A colossal ship, glowing with 1,000 lights. Its hull was reinforced with the best armor technology the galaxy had to offer. The Halcyon was built for one purpose: to crush any enemy that dared challenge the might of the Council. It was the symbol of their dominance, and it was about to face its greatest test. On the command bridge of the Halcyon, General Thrax stood, staring at the holographic display of the approaching Vanguard fleet. His scales shimmered with an eerie light, his cold eyes focused on the enemy. He had fought in countless battles, but this was different. The humans had proven themselves capable of turning the tide, and now they were on the verge of victory. We can't let them get any closer, Thrax growled, his claws tapping against the cold metal surface of the command console. Prepare all weapon systems. If they think they can come in here and destroy us, they're sorely mistaken. Chancellor Velina stood beside him, her calm demeanor belying the storm of emotions churning inside her. She had ordered this confrontation. She had been the one to push for the final assault on humanity's fleet. Now, as she gazed at the human ships, she felt a weight of responsibility pressing down on her. She knew that this battle could either secure the Council's future or mark the end of their reign. Focus on their flagship, Velina instructed. Take out their command ship first, and the rest of the fleet will fall apart. We've already seen the kind of power they have, but they won't be able to coordinate without their central command. That's our target. The Halcyon shuddered as it fired its first volley of energy blasts. The massive projectiles sped toward the Vanguard fleet, leaving brilliant trails of light in their wake. The human ships, smaller but far more agile than anything the Council could throw at them, scattered, evading the blasts with ease. The Vanguard had learned from the previous strikes. They were not going to give the Council the satisfaction of an easy kill. Captain Bonner, leader of the Vanguard fleet, watched the battle unfold with a level of focus that only years of war could bring. His eyes, sharp and calculating, were constantly scanning the battlefield. He had been through too much to lose now, not after everything the humans had fought for. After all, this was more than just a military operation. It was a matter of pride, of vengeance, of reclaiming what had been taken from them. "Target their weapons systems," Bonner ordered, his voice calm but fierce. "We need to cripple them before they can get another shot off." The human fleet moved as one, a well-oiled machine that seemed to anticipate every move the Council made. Their cloaking technology, something the Council had never been able to replicate, allowed them to strike from unexpected angles, confusing the enemy. Lasers and plasma bolts cut through the void of space, splintering the hulls of the Council ships and sending debris spiraling into the abyss. But the Council was not without its own strength. The Halcyon shields flared as the human ships closed in, absorbing their attacks. Velina watched as the battle raged, her heart pounding. For all their technology, for all their superiority, it was clear now that the Council was losing. The humans were relentless, showing no mercy, no hesitation. They had no fear left to lose, and that made them far more dangerous than any alien species they had ever encountered. The human flagship, Vanguard Prime, tore through the enemy lines, pushing forward with an unstoppable force. Its guns fired with precision, its engines roaring as it accelerated toward the Halcyon. The Council's ships tried to intercept it, but it was clear that they were no match for the Vanguard's firepower. "Engage the final offensive," Velina said, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around her. "We have no choice now. It's all or nothing." Thrax nodded grimly, watching as the human flagship neared the Halcyon. The time for strategies and tactics was over. Now, it would be about sheer willpower and determination. As Vanguard Prime approached, the Council's fleet began its final charge. It was a desperate last stand, but it was clear that the humans were ready for it. The Vanguard fleet and the Halcyon collided in a cataclysmic clash of metal, energy, and fire. Explosions rocked the space around them, creating blinding flashes of light as ships were torn apart. Inside the Halcyon, alarms blared, and the crew scrambled to maintain control. The mighty flagship was being overwhelmed, and it was clear that the battle was slipping away from them. A final barrage of energy weapons from Vanguard Prime cracked open the Halcyon's hull, sending shockwaves through the ship. The Council's flagship was falling. "All hands, abandon ship," Thrax shouted, his voice full of frustration and rage. It was the end of the line for the Galactic Council, and they had no choice but to retreat. The humans had won. The Galactic Council had paid the price for their betrayal. The battle was over. The Galactic Council had been defeated, and humanity's fleet stood victorious amidst the wreckage of what had once been the mightiest force in the galaxy. But victory came at a price that no one, not even the most hardened soldiers, could ignore. As the dust settled and the chaos of the war began to fade, the true cost of their triumph became apparent. Captain Bonner stood on the observation deck of Vanguard Prime, gazing out at the shattered remnants of the battlefield. The stars beyond seemed distant, almost too far to reach. His eyes, once filled with determination, now reflected the exhaustion of a leader who had seen too much death, too much destruction. The galaxy had changed forever, but so had humanity. The fight for survival had not only forged a new strength within them, but had also awakened a side of humanity they had never known existed. An unyielding will to survive, to protect, and to rise above any challenge. "We did it, Captain," Sergeant Riley said, his voice hoarse from the long hours of fighting. "We finally did it." Bonner nodded, but there was no joy in his expression. He had heard the words, but they felt hollow. For every victory, there was a loss, For every ship that had been destroyed, for every enemy fallen, there had been men and women on their side who would never return home. The empty seats on the ship's bridge were a reminder of the sacrifice, the lives that had been lost in the name of humanity's survival. In the aftermath of the battle, Bonner and his crew were left to pick up the pieces of their shattered world. There were no grand celebrations, no applause for their efforts. Instead, the focus turned to the wounded, the grieving families, and the long road to rebuilding what had been torn apart. Victory was bittersweet. It was a hard-earned triumph, but it was also a reminder of how fragile life could be. The human fleet, once outnumbered and outgunned, had emerged as the galaxy's new power. Yet, as they surveyed the wreckage, it became clear that the price of their survival was steep. The destruction of the Galactic Council's fleet was only the beginning. There were still countless challenges ahead. The Syndicate, who had been allies, had their own interests. The galaxy itself was still divided, and there would be those who sought to fill the power vacuum left by the Council's fall. Bonner turned to his crew, his voice filled with the weight of their shared experiences. "We've won, but we've lost too. Many of our comrades are gone, and it will be a long time before we can heal from this war. We need to rebuild, not just our fleets, but our alliances, our trust, and our unity." His words hung in the air, heavy and uncomfortable. The human race had faced their darkest hour, and now they had to navigate the uncertain future that lay ahead. The war was over, but the scars it had left behind were not easily erased. As Bonner walked through the corridors of Vanguard Prime, he couldn't escape the feeling that something had changed within him. The battle had shaped him, had forged a new purpose within his heart. The loss of comrades, the destruction of entire fleets, it all weighed on him. But he had learned something important. The strength of humanity was not just in its technology or its weapons. It was in its people. The ability to endure, to fight, to push forward even when everything seemed lost, was what made humanity unstoppable. Yet there was no ignoring the cost of that strength. The emotional toll was overwhelming. Bonner had seen friends fall in battle, and the faces of the fallen haunted him. They had fought so bravely, and now they were gone. He could still hear the last words of Sergeant Jenkins, who had died in the thick of the battle. Jenkins had been more than a soldier. He had been a brother, a friend. And now he was nothing more than a memory. "Sir, we've received reports from the survivors," Lieutenant Harris said as she entered the room, her face pale with exhaustion. "The fleet is secure, but we've lost contact with some of the outlying ships. We think they're trapped in the debris field. We need to send a recovery mission." Bonner nodded, though the thought of more danger felt exhausting. "Prepare the rescue teams. No one gets left behind." The price of victory wasn't just measured in the lives lost. It was measured in the future that awaited them. The Council had fallen, but the galaxy had not become a safer place. New enemies would rise, old alliances would crumble, and there would be those who would seek to take advantage of humanity's newfound power. The human race would need to remain vigilant, stronger than ever before, to ensure that their victory meant something more than just a fleeting moment of glory. Bonner stood on the bridge, staring out at the vastness of space. The stars seemed endless, a reminder of how small they were in the grand scheme of the universe. But the humans had something the Council had never understood: a fierce, unbreakable spirit. And that, more than anything, would ensure their survival. "We've won," Bonner whispered to himself, though the words still felt strange. "But the fight's not over." As the human fleet moved through the remnants of the battlefield, Bonner couldn't help but wonder if they had truly paid the price for victory. The cost would never be fully known, not until the years passed, not until the true depth of the sacrifice revealed itself. But for now, humanity had survived, and that was enough. The war had been brutal. The galaxy would never be the same. But one thing was certain: the humans had proven that they were a force to be reckoned with. The Galactic Council had betrayed them, and now they had paid the price. The humans had won, and though the cost had been high, They had earned their place among the stars.